Hi, this is Dan from Hello Music Theory. In this series, I'm going over some of the questions that could come up in an ABRSM Grade 1 Music Theory exam. In today's video, though, we're going to take a look at how to beam notes correctly. So when you see this question in an exam, it's going to say something like, rewrite the following extract with the notes beamed and grouped correctly. And then you'll have a group of notes, semiquavers, quavers without beams in between, so just the stems, just the stems and the tails. And then you have to go through, rewrite all of the notes, but with them grouped correctly. So a few things to mention before we have a look at an example. So we beam quavers in minim beats. Okay, so that means that we're going to have 4 quavers beamed together at a time, a maximum of 4. Okay, so let's say we're in 4/4 time signature, and we've got maybe a crotchet and another crotchet, and then we've got 4 quavers. 1, 2, 3, 4 quavers. So because these add up to a minim, these 4 quavers, we can beam all 4 of those together, like so. And if that was this way around, so let's say that these 4 notes were the 4 quavers, that would be correct as well, because it's starting on beat 1 or beat 3. The only exception to this rule is if the 4 quavers start on beat 2. So let's say we're in 4/4 again, and we've got maybe a crotchet followed by 4 quavers. So the quavers start on beat 2 in the bar, and one more crotchet at the end. So we wouldn't write it like this. This would be wrong. If the 4 quavers start on beat 2, we separate them out into pairs, into crotchet beats, like so. Okay? And there is one more exception, which is in the time signature 3/4. So in the time signature 3/4, we can actually beam them together in longer than a minim beat. We can do it in a dotted minim beat. So let's say we had a whole bar of quavers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quavers in a bar. Let's draw these out. When we're in 3/4, we can beam all 6 of those together. Okay? We wouldn't beam them together in 3s like this. This is definitely wrong because this implies a totally different time signature that we'll learn about in a different grade. And we don't beam them in pairs like this. In 3/4, we beam them in one long beam, like so. Okay. Now, if we have a semiquaver in a group of notes, then we beam them in crotchet beats. So that means we could have 4 semiquavers, because that adds up to 1 crotchet beat, and we beam 4 of them together. So let's say we're in 3/4 again, and let's say we've got a crotchet, another crotchet, and then 4 semiquavers. In this case, let me try and get this straight. Sorry, it's hard to draw these with a tablet, straight lines. So in this case, we can beam those 4 together. Okay? So let's have a look at an example, and then hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. So first thing to mention is you're going to get a piece of music. You can see here, like I said, they don't have beams between the notes. So there's no beams. It's just the stems and the tails. And then below an extract of music, you're going to get given an empty stave. Now, I've gone through and added in the note heads of all the notes above, just to save time for this YouTube video. But you can go through and the first thing you should do is add the note heads, and then you're going to make it a lot easier when you come to add the stems and the beams. So we're in 4/4 here, and so we're going to get going. So let's take a look at the first 4 notes here. Here we've got 4 quavers. Okay, so like we said at the beginning, we can beam quavers in groups of a minim. So 4 quavers altogether adds up to 1 minim. So we can actually beam these 4 quavers together. We need to just check which direction the stems are going to point as well. This is important when you're beaming notes. So all of these notes are above the middle line of the stave, which means that their stems should point downwards. But if they were below the middle line of the stave, then the stems would point up. Okay, so we can go ahead and add in the stems here. Now, one more thing to mention is the angle of the beam. So should it be angled up or should it be angled down? Because this note here, the group of quavers starts and ends on the same note, we're going to have a flat beam. Okay, so we're going to draw as straight as I can. On this tablet, it's very hard to draw straight lines. Imagine that's a straight line. So those ones are done. So let's keep going. Now, because we said if a group of notes has a semiquaver in, we're going to group them in crotchet beats. So here is a semiquaver, so we're going to have to group these three notes which add up to a crotchet together. Okay, now all of the notes are below the middle line of the stave, so we're going to draw the stems pointing up, and the note that it starts on is higher than the note that it finishes on. So we're going to have a slight angle down as well to the beam. So we're going to draw this one slightly longer and have a little slight angle like so, because the music is descending. And then these two are semiquavers, so we need to add in our second beam there, and we're done. Let's keep going. So here all the notes are below the middle line of the stave, so the stems are going to point up. The first note is below this last note, so the music is rising, so we're going to have an angling beam as well. So we can draw these stems slightly longer, so we've got a nice angle to the beam there, and then we draw in the second beam for the semiquavers. And the first bar is done. Let's keep going. Okay, here we've got a dotted quaver followed by a semiquaver. So we're going to group these two together. This one is above the middle line of the stave, and this note here is on the middle line of the stave, so that means you can choose which direction. But because of this second note here is above, it means we're going to group the stems of these two notes are going to point down. And again, the music is rising, so the second note is above the first note, so we're going to have a nice angle to the beam as well. Angle it up, and then draw in the second little semiquaver tail there. Let's keep going. Okay, here we've got 4 quavers all together, but hopefully you remember at the beginning I said if the quavers start on beat 2, then that means that we group them in pairs. So here's group 1 of this bar, beat 1 of this bar, here's beat 2, here's beat 3, and here's beat 4. So because it starts on beat 2, we're going to actually group these 4 quavers in pairs. So these two are going to have their stems pointing up with a little angle of the beam as well, because the music's rising. And then these two are going to be down with the stems slightly longer on the second one because the music is descending. And then lastly, we can just add in our stem for the crotchet. Bar 2 is done. One more bar. Here we've got 4 semiquavers. Okay, so all the notes are above the middle line of the stave, so the stems are going to point down. The music is rising as well, so we're going to have a slight angle to the beam. So let's go ahead and draw these 4 together. A little bit of an angle there. Draw in the beam, and then the second one. Just about got it. Almost there. We've got 3 more notes to go. We've got a dotted quaver and a semiquaver. Angle it down as well because the music's low descending, and then finish off with the minim. And we're done. Let's have another look at an example in 3/4. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this now. So have we got a whole bar of quavers here? No, we've got 2 semiquavers at the end. So that means we're not going to have a whole bar beamed together of quavers. But we do have 4 here that we can beam together in a minute. Okay, so we can beam these 4 together. Now we need to work out which direction the stems should point. So which is the highest note? It's this one here. And which is the lowest note? It's this one here. Now this first note here, this low D, is further away from the middle line than this note, which means that we're going to have all of the notes pointing up, all of the stems of the notes pointing up, because this one is the one that we take the lead from. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw in these stems. The music's rising as well, so we're going to start off a little bit lower with these stems here, get them rising up like so. Draw in the beam, and then here we've got 1 more quaver and 2 semiquavers. Now this first note is the same distance away from the middle line of the stave as this note, so we can actually choose which direction we want the stems to go. So I'm going to go ahead and draw them up, but you could do it down as well. And because the music's descending as well, I'm going to have a little angle to the beam, and then draw in our semiquaver, second beam there. Bar 1 done. Let's keep going. About halfway through. Right, what have we got here? We've got a semiquaver followed by a quaver, and then another semiquaver. So we're going to have the stems pointing up because all the notes are below the middle line of the stave, and the music's rising, so I have a little angle there. And then we just need to add in our 2 semiquavers. And here we've got a semiquaver rest followed by 3 semiquavers. So we can actually group these 3 semiquavers together because they're under the value of a crotchet. So we're going to actually have all of those beamed together. Now the music's rising ever so slightly. So this one could be almost rising, but it's pretty much flat because there's only 1 note there. and then we can add in our second one. And then last two, we've got two semiquavers. We can ignore this quaver rest because all of these notes add up to one crotchet, so we can just beam these two together with a little angle to the beam. And then lastly, let's just finish this off quickly. There we go, and our minim. Job done. One more to go. Let's have a look at an example in 2/4 and then we'll finish. Okay, let's get going. So where's a crotchet beat? We've got a crotchet beat here, a quaver plus two semiquavers. So we're going to beam these three notes together. All of the notes are above the middle line of the stave, so we can point down with the stems, and the music's descending as well, so we're going to have a little angle down to the beam. First beat's done. Then we've got the second crotchet beat here. The music's rising, so we're going to have the stems, the beam pointing up, but then the furthest away note from the middle line of the stave is this D. It's further away than this A, so that means that the stems are going to point down. Okay, so we can have these stems rising up with the music, and then draw in our semiquaver beams there. Right, we've got a whole bar of quavers, so we can have all of these notes beamed together. So we can, all the notes, except this one is above the middle line of the stave, but because this lowest note in the bar is further away than the middle line, we're going to take it from this one, so we're going to use that F and have all the stems pointing up like the F. Okay, pretty much flat on this one, even though the music's slightly descending. It's kind of doing both, isn't it, really? Rising at the beginning and then lowering at the end. Right, two more bars to go and then we'll finish. We've got four semiquavers here, but we group the notes in crotchet beats. So although these four notes add up to a crotchet, we don't want to forget about this quaver at the beginning. So we're actually going to group them together like this, and this is a crotchet beat, and then this is also a crotchet beat. So it means we're going to split up those semiquavers and not have them grouped in one long beam, but in pairs. Okay, so let's get the stems drawn in here, and then we can have like so, and then the same here. Both of them are rising slightly. One more, we've got one more bar to go before we finish. Here we've got a dotted quaver and a semiquaver rising slightly. And then the last two notes, here we've got a semiquaver and a quaver rising slightly as well. Great, so I hope that's helped make a little bit more sense of how to beam and group these notes. If you have any questions, pop a comment below or drop me an email and I'll be happy to help and explain in a bit more detail. See you next week. Thanks so much.